It all started on a bitterly cold December evening in 2019, in a small town just outside of Ashland, Oregon. Olivia Barnes, a 27-year-old recent graduate, had just moved into a cabin nestled deep in the woods. The place had been a steal, something she couldn't believe when she signed the lease. A 2-bedroom cabin with a fireplace, a large kitchen, and wraparound windows that gave a stunning view of the forest. It was a dream come true for someone craving peace and solitude. But Olivia should have asked why it had been so cheap. On her first night, everything seemed perfect. She unpacked her boxes, poured herself a glass of wine, and snuggled on the couch with a thick blanket. The wind howled softly outside, brushing the treetops. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Her phone barely got a signal, and the Wi-Fi was spotty at best. That was fine with her. She'd moved to get away from the noise of the city, from the constant buzzing of notifications and messages. Out here she could breathe again. Around 2 a.m., she was startled awake by a sound. Not a loud sound but distinct, like a footstep on wooden planks. It came from the back of the house. She sat up and listened, holding her breath. Silence. She shook her head, blaming the noise on an overactive imagination. It was a new place. Creaks and groans were normal, right? The next morning, she noticed muddy footprints on her back porch. They were small, like a child's, and they trailed in a circle, starting at one end of the porch and ending back where they began. Olivia didn't know what to think. There were no children around, and she hadn't seen a single neighbor since she moved in. Still, maybe someone had wandered too far while hiking and stumbled onto her property. She brushed it off. That night, as she was brushing her teeth, she heard tapping. Soft, rhythmic tapping on the bathroom window. It wasn't loud, but enough to stop her mid-motion. She stared into the mirror, frozen, trying to convince herself she was imagining it. Then it came again. She turned around and approached the frosted glass slowly. She couldn't see out, but her heart raced. She mustered the courage to pull up the blinds. Nothing. The darkness outside swallowed everything beyond the porch light. The next few nights were quiet again. Olivia tried not to think about the tapping or the footprints. Maybe it was some local kid playing a prank. That was easier to believe than anything else her imagination had started to conjure. But on the 5th night, everything changed. She woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of her front door creaking open. Not just unlocked. Open. The sharp, whiny moan of hinges echoed down the hallway. Olivia sat upright in bed, eyes wide, heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She waited. Listen. Then she heard it. Voice. A small, whispery child's voice. Olivia! She scrambled for her phone and dialed 911, but the call wouldn't go through. No signal. Just an endless spinning icon on the screen. The voice came again. This time from closer. Olivia. Why won't you come play with me? She grabbed the baseball bat she kept by her bed and tiptoed toward the hallway. The cabin was dark, save for the moonlight spilling through the living room window. She felt like her body had turned to ice. She could hear something moving, soft feet sliding across the floorboards like someone was dragging themselves. She turned the corner. Nothing. She checked the front door. It was wide open, swinging gently in the wind. She shut it and locked it, then went room to room, flipping every light switch on. The cabin was empty. Or so it seemed. When she returned to the living room, her eyes fell on something that made her stomach drop. Handprint. Pressed against the glass from the inside, just above the couch. Mudge. Like a child's. She barely slept that night. The next day, Olivia called the property owner, Mr. Jenkins, a man in his 60s who lived 3 towns over. He sounded calm on the phone, but there was a pause when she described what had happened. I told the agency not to lease that place anymore, he muttered. What do you mean? Olivia asked. Nothing, he replied too quickly. Probably just a raccoon or something. Old houses make strange noises. She hung up unsatisfied. Later that day, she drove into town and asked around. A local librarian named Diane remembered the cabin. That place, she said, lowering her voice. It's been empty since the Miller family disappeared. Disappeared? Dan nodded. About 12 years ago. Mother, father, and their little girl, Emily. They just vanished one night. Police found signs of struggle, but no bodies. The strange part was, everything was locked from the inside. Olivia's skin prickled. That night she didn't sleep. She stayed up with every light on, baseball bat in hand, sitting in the living room with her back to the wall. Around 3 a.m., she heard a giggle. Then another. The lights flickered. She ran outside, barefoot, heart pounding, and sat in her car until sunrise. By morning she'd decided to leave. She packed up her essentials, called the agency, and told them she was breaking the lease. But before she left, curiosity got the better of her. She walked down to the basement, a place she hadn't explored since moving in. The door creaked open. The air was cold and stale. She descended the wooden steps, flashlight in hand. The walls were lined with old drawings, childlike scrawls in faded crayon, smiling stick figures, house with a big sun, and then something darker, a figure with hollow eyes, red scribbles that looked like blood. In the far corner was a small, rotting toy chest. She approached and opened it slowly. Inside were old toys, a tattered teddy bear, and a small journal. She picked it up. It belonged to Emily Miller. The last entry read, "Daddy is angry again." Mommy cried. "I want to go outside but he won't let me. He says I have to stay in the dark. He says the shadow will come if I don't. I saw her again last night. She had no eyes. She told me to bring her a friend." Olivia dropped the journal and backed away, suddenly feeling the coldness wrap around her like a cloak. A whisper filled her ears. "You're my friend now." She screamed and ran from the house, got in her car and never looked back. 2 weeks later, the real estate agency called. They'd sent a cleaner to prepare the cabin for a new tenant. But when they arrived, the place was in disarray. Every window was shattered from the inside, and words were scrawled on the walls in red ink. "She belongs to me." No one has lived there since. Olivia moved across the country, changed her number, and never told anyone the full story. But even now, she sometimes wakes up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of giggling. And sometimes, when the lights are off, she sees the faint outline of a small handprint on her window.